So why are Cambridgeshire Police having to resort to violence here? And would you want to be a police officer in today's society? Richard Taylor blogs on police issues in the county. Richard, good morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Are you surprised by these figures?
Well, it's the first time that we've had these figures out. It's only for the last few months that we've actually been asking the police to record all uses of force. Before this, we only found out when they were doing things such as using tasers or using firearms, or in relation to events in custody. We only really find out what happened when somebody died. So now we're finding out an awful lot more detail about the use of force by the police. And I think it's really important that we do know what the police are doing, because every time the police are using force, they're essentially using it on our behalf. They're acting on behalf of wider society. So we should be able to see what's happening, and we should have this level of transparency.
Does it paint a picture, do you think, of a police force who are a bit heavy-handed, or is it painting a picture of a force that's having to resort to this because of the way society has changed?
Well, I think it's very difficult to draw any conclusions from this first release of the statistics. And really, I think one thing we should be asking is, does it enable us this morning to have an informed conversation? Does it enable us to answer the question that you asked? And I think it doesn't, and we should be feeding that back into the police and saying, what kind of information do we really need from them? We've got a huge amount of information. Police officers have put a huge amount of effort into filling in the thousands of these forms to provide us with these statistics, but we don't actually have, for example, a little sentence just to describe exactly what the circumstances were in each use of force. The top use of force being reported today, over 1,000 of the 1,200 or so events relate to tactical communications. Now, I think this is just an example of where the police use different language from the rest of us.
Yeah.
Like, tactical communications sounds to me like the kind of thing that you do before escalating to using force. So what does tactical communications mean there? I've had a look on some police websites this morning and to try and find the definition of that term, and one definition I found said, well, tactical communications is something that can be done with or without a baton. Well, it's just bizarre to me. So I think we really need to drill down on exactly what's being reported here. I found some advice that suggests that actually tactical communications is a level of force. Presumably that's something like shouting very loudly at someone, or indicating where you want them to go by maybe contact, maybe not contact. We need to find out what these terms mean, and then should they even be reported? Is a police officer shouting loudly at someone to make them encourage them to do something force? Is compliant putting on handcuffs when someone's being arrested, is that really use of force? I think that's probably something we should have some statistics on, but is it really a use of force? So I think it is great that they've taken a step forward by publishing this. But
is it though? Because I wonder whether it's all a waste of their time, and they ought to be out on the streets actually policing rather than filling in forms. Because that's my other point.
Yeah, if it's not working, of course it's not. The forms that they're being asked to fill in are ridiculous, and they're outside of the normal way of working. I think what I expect anyway, is police officers to note down anything significant that they do in their while they're working. So the old-fashioned idea would be they'd have a pocket notebook and they would fill it in. Now that's gone, but what we need to ensure is, they still have pocket notebooks, but it's being replaced by electronic systems. So we need to ensure the electronic systems really work and enable them to record what they're doing and collect some statistics. But really,
simplify the language as well, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, and I think, yeah, when they actually publish the stuff, they need to be using language that we can all understand, so that we all understand what's going on. But I wonder if some of this is a replacement for the courts being more closed. Like, one way we should be finding out about whether or not the police have been acting appropriately is when cases end up in court. We should all be able to see what's going on, and we should find out what the court's decisions are. So I'd like to be able to monitor what's going on in that format more easily, rather than having to rely on something that the police themselves put out. Yeah,
Richard, thank you for that. Richard Taylor, who's a blogger on police issues in the county. Is this all a waste of time, filling in forms? You know, I shouted at him, I put some handcuffs on him. While they're doing all that rubbish, they're taking time away from actually policing, aren't they? And we keep being told we've got less police officers, less time. Maybe this is just a waste of their time, is it? Your thoughts? 03459 25 2000. This from